friends, I hope you're doing well today. Today I'll be talking to you guys about finances as a widow. There's so many changes as a widow with your finances that becomes overwhelming. And I'm going to talk to you guys about my experience. I am not an accountant. I'm not a financial advisor. Um, I don't know any legal as well. I'm just going to talk to you guys about my experiences and what I did to provide for my family. Because now, as a widow, now you only have one income instead of two incomes, and how you're going to survive and provide on one income. And it becomes overwhelming, especially if the situation that you're in. As I spoke into in my first video, my husband was passed away unexpectedly, and I didn't have any life insurance. So that was a definitely struggling time for me, trying to figure out how I'm gonna pay for my husband's funeral costs. So it was overwhelming. And I was lucky enough that my husband's manager at the time gave me a huge donation, which helped me with my husband's funeral costs. The burial, as I stated in my first video, it was cut in half for me because he was a veteran. So they gave me the veteran fees, so that helped me out tremendously. But after all that is said and done, now as a widow, you have to figure out what your finances are. And let me tell you, that is overwhelming because there's certain things that your spouse does without telling you. They're thinking they're doing the right thing and they really aren't. And now you're in a situation where you have to now fix it. There's certain things that, as a widow, that you should fix, but some things, like I'll give you an example. My husband had a credit card with his name only, and the creditor wanted me to pay that amount, but it wasn't my responsibility because it was only for his credit card. So you have to make sure when you're doing your list of your finances, you have to make sure if you're responsible for his and what you're not, or his or her, or not responsible for your things as well. That's what I learned too. And thank God I learned that because I was going to pay this creditor, and but it wasn't my responsibility. So with the taxes, my husband decided that he was going to save on the taxes, which no, it didn't work out because we lived in a suburb of New York, so we had to pay taxes of that, and he also had to pay taxes for New Jersey because that's where he worked. So he would withhold not withdraw, sorry, he would hold the taxes from Jersey and New York. And let me tell you, that was a nightmare to fix with my accountant. It took me about 2 years because now it became a responsibility because we filed the taxes together. So I had to fix that information, which cleared out, thank God, within time. And then you have to figure out now filing your taxes. Living in New York, I filed my taxes with my accountant, and I did a widow. It's called widow qualifier taxes, and I did that for 2 years because my husband passed away in May 2014, and that's how I filed that in 2015. That's how I filed my taxes with my accountant. Now every state is different, so you have to figure out what works with you and that state with your accountant. um, I'm not a financial advisor or an accountant. I'm just talking to you about my experiences and what I had to do in order for me to provide for my family on a one income. Making sure that you make an appointment for Social Security because there are benefits for you and the kids. I has they called SSI, survival benefits for the kids. Um, they helped you with the benefits until the age of 18. Once they turn 18, they're no longer covered. So I had that to help me to provide for the boys whatever they needed, because you know that children are expensive. At the time my husband passed, so the boys were, Brandon was 16, the second oldest was 9. Yes, the 9, and then my youngest was 5. So I had to make an appointment for Social Security, making sure they had their benefits. The other concern I had with health insurance. Health insurance is expensive for the boys and for myself. I was covered through my employer, but I couldn't afford having the whole family and a health benefit. So Social Security helped me with that as well, signing them up with health insurance benefits. You can also go to the Healthcare Exchange Program website, and they have a whole list of insurances for yourself and your kids. Um, so they helped me with that, with health insurance. At the time, my husband, so give you a little backstory. We were living comfortable, like um, very comfortable. My husband he was a VP in the technology world, and one year he lost his job, and I wasn't working at the time, and my kids were young. My youngest was like 10 months old, and I was like, you know what? I am going back to school. I'm going back to work. My husband was like, no, no, just stay here with the kids and take care of them. Thank God I didn't listen to him. I finished my degree in business and my bachelor's, and I couldn't find work because I stood home for such a long time that I never did my bachelor's looking for work. So they were not going to even look at me because I had no experience. So then I decided to go back to school and be in the healthcare industry, learning how to do the finance side. So it was a 1 year program. I did that, and immediately I found work. So 6 months later, my husband found work. So we had two incomes now in the home to provide. So then 3 years later, he passed away in a horrific accident. So then, as a widow, I now have to learn how to do my finances as a widow, and learned all my resources. At the time, we had stocks, so I decided to liquidate them without speaking to my lawyer. And I recommend you speaking to your lawyer before you do your assets, because that would hurt on your taxes, which I didn't know that. I thought that doing the present moment was going to help me. In reality, it kind of hurt me with my taxes. So I learned that. Making a list of your spouse's pension, seeing if you have any benefits that can help you with that, or if you're of age. Um, at the time, I wasn't of age. I was a widow at 36, and for Social Security, I wasn't qualified for any benefits because I wasn't of age. So, but the kids were. So I got the benefits for the kids to help me out to provide. I went through several jobs trying to get more money to help me provide for the boys. At that time, my husband didn't have any medical insurances. Knowing that I wasn't responsible for his medical expenses. So learning about that, because I didn't want to pay that amount if I wasn't responsible for it. So as a widow, you have to see what you're responsible for and what you're not responsible for to help you save the money. And because then if you pay these people, then you're not responsible for it, and then you lose your money. So knowing what you're responsible for and not responsible for of your estate And sometimes when you involve other people, like I recommend not being so trustworthy with family or friends when it comes to your finances, because death, family, and money, I've seen it happen, and it becomes really tricky. And you got to protect yourself and your family at the end of the day. So, learning about your finances on your own is the best way with your resources. It becomes overwhelming. Try to get a financial advisor to help you, and there's tons of financial advisors that you have to pay a fee, but they're there to help you to figure out your finances. And it's safer because they're going to give you on a professional level, because you never know people's intentions. And like I said it before, like I've seen it before. I haven't experienced that, but you hear other people experience that when it comes to that life insurance, and the parent of your spouse wants to know what they're eligible for. It just becomes really tricky. Um, so making a list, knowing where to get your resources, making time for your Social Security benefits, making time to make an appointment to know your benefits, and every time, and knowing the pension, if your spouse had a pension that you're qualified for. I did my investigation hat and I took my time trying to figure out all the resources that I needed to provide for the family. Um, and it helps me a lot back then. Um, Fast forward to now, I am, with the economy the way it is, I'm searching for a second job to help me with the finances. So you have to also learn about long-term widow, and even, and sadly to say, if you find somebody and you either want to get married, you got to really figure out, should I get married with this person, or because of your benefits? It's really tricky as a widow, and you got to really figure out, that's the really sad part about that, that if you find someone and you have all this, you know, you finally find the him or her, but then you got to really make sure about the finances as well. It becomes a little tricky. At the time I spoke to you in my first video, my husband didn't have any life insurance, so that made things even worse, which I've learned a lot on the finances side, and taking your time with it, but not taking too much time, because then you have a time frame that you need to figure out what is best to apply for these sources. So it actually it becomes very overwhelming, especially when you're grieving. But when you're taking the time for these sources and figuring out, making your list, it would make you have a clearer path on what the finances will be. Because I stated before, as a widow now, you're having a one income. So learning to survive on one income becomes challenging. But once you figure out your resources and getting all those benefits and making sure everything is laid out in front of you, it'll be better. So, yes, I'm just speaking to you of my experiences. Make sure that um, you're responsible for certain charges from your widow or widower, because sometimes these credit collectors wanted you to pay. In reality, you're not responsible for them because it's only under his name. And now you got to figure out how much the estate is for certain things for him or her. So learning about that as well. But you'll figure it out at the time comes. It'll become clearer. Sometimes with grieving, your mind is very clouded. But taking it day by day and checking out your resources is helpful. I hope you I hope this video helped you. Thank you for watching. Until next time.